The modern knowledge worker has permanently migrated away from the traditional, centralized office. Telecommuting was initially introduced in the 1970s as a mechanical solution to reduce commute times and energy consumption. Over decades, it evolved into a standard, if limited, practice. The global lockdowns of 2020 accelerated this transition, forcing remote work to operate at scale before cementing it as a permanent structural norm. Data confirms why this model is here to stay. Remote workers consistently demonstrate increased individual performance and report better work-life balance when operating away from the office. Yet, a critical vulnerability threatens the sustainability of this model: professional isolation. We successfully digitized the desk, but left behind the human community that the physical office provided. Organizations are suffering from a knowing-doing gap. They possess immense suites of collaborative technology, but fail to implement the cultural and structural frameworks required to support them. Leadership makes a consistent assumption. They believe deploying communication software is the exact equivalent of deploying social connection. In reality, computer-supported cooperative work, or CSCW systems, fail entirely to support social connectedness. To understand why this system breakdown occurs, we have to look through the sociological lens of symbolic interactionism. This concept examines how users interpret, process, and assign specific psychological meaning to their digital environments and tools. The core operational error is expecting a tool symbolically designed to extract task output to organically generate human connection. Professional isolation involves two distinct layers: physical separation from the organization and psychological separation from peers. A 2015 study by Nicholas Bloom and colleagues at a Chinese travel company provides concrete data on this dynamic. Researchers took 249 employees, assigned them to work from home for 9 months, and measured them against a control group that remained in the office. The business outcomes were highly positive. The remote workers demonstrated massive performance boosts compared to their in-office counterparts. But behavioral data revealed a counterintuitive outcome. When the experiment ended, 50% of the successful remote workers voluntarily chose to return to the office. Their primary documented reasons for giving up the remote flexibility were a severe lack of social interaction and feeling isolated. Professional isolation is driven by physical location. Simply upgrading communication software will not natively cure a condition rooted in geographical separation. Modern ethnographic data on highly digitized remote knowledge workers reveals a specific nuance to this problem. These workers do not fear losing organizational privileges or missing out on promotions. Instead, they suffer from a distinct loss of connectedness to their peers. Johansson's CSCW matrix categorizes how teams collaborate across time and space. The remote synchronous quadrant holds real-time tools, like video calls. The remote asynchronous quadrant relies on delayed communication, like emails. But informal social interaction bounces off this ecosystem, finding no structural anchor in any quadrant. Every dimension of task execution is covered, yet the architecture entirely overlooks the social space. Applying symbolic interactionism explains exactly why this matrix rejects social connection. Users hold incredibly low expectations for social interaction when logging into these systems. They view the software strictly as a conduit for work. This creates a high contact threshold, the psychological friction required to initiate non-task-related contact in a digital environment. You can't just bump into someone digitally. You must actively schedule time, generate a link, and hesitate before pulling them into a meeting space. Digital contact requires intentional, scheduled, and formal initiation. That required intent kills spontaneity. Furthermore, CSCW systems lack support for natural interaction rhythms and varied social inputs, like ambient presence or subtle body language. Because the user experience of enterprise tools strongly symbolizes work, it creates a rigid psychological barrier to casual human connection. The most common industry pushback to this data is the belief that enterprise chat platforms function as sufficient social spaces. Ethnographic studies confirm that chat systems do successfully enable easy and informal communication, but informal communication and social connectedness are not the same thing. Even casual interactions on enterprise platforms are inherently bounded by task-oriented constraints and the lingering awareness of organizational visibility. System designers have consistently made a critical error. They lumped social interaction into the broader concept of communication. Communication is the transfer of operational data. Social interaction is the building of relational connectedness. Adding more chat channels, emojis, or video tools will never cure isolation if their underlying symbolic meaning remains strictly operational. Information systems designed for communication do not natively reduce professional isolation. Returning to the task matrix clarifies the structural reorganization required. The current tools must be flattened into a base layer, recognized strictly as task communication. Above it, organizations must build a distinct, unsupported layer strictly for connection, physically separated from the tools below. For HR strategists, organizational leaders, and UX designers, the prescriptive takeaway is clear. Stop expecting task-oriented software to serve double duty as social lifelines for remote workers. To bridge the digital knowing-doing gap, companies must build new, intentional frameworks, whether through dedicated software or radically different management practices. These new frameworks must explicitly hold the symbolic meaning of social interaction, entirely free from the anxiety of productivity. The future of successful hybrid work relies on entirely decoupling human connectedness from corporate output.